Hey folks, Big Willy here from Big Willy Fab Shop, and today's episode we are going to be jumping back onto the 1958 build. Today's episode is going to be really exciting. You guys will barely be able to just see it and watch us because we are working on wiring harness. Oh man, everyone's favorite thing right here. So I kind of won't go too much into detail because it's wiring harness and you know everyone loves it. Anyways, the kind of goal here is to get rid of the stuff that we do not need, because half of the stuff we do not need. So we're gonna go through it, lighten up the load. So whatever's needed on the 58, we're gonna keep, and everything else we are going to get rid of, and then go from there. So I'll be kind of going through each connector here, figuring out if we need it, and if we do, keep it. If not, I'll pull the wires out, cut it, and then also some of the wires I guess I won't actually cut because we'll be keeping some for extra power wires if we're going to run a aftermarket AC box and all that. They'll have switches on there, so I'll need power to that, and such. So from right here to right there, everything over to the left, that is all in the engine bay. And then everything over to the right, this goes all underneath the dash. So I think I should have mostly everything here, but I guess we won't find that out until I start going through everything. So the first step is to unravel the harness, or not unravel the harness, but get the loom off, get the electrical tape off. So with that, I'll show you how to undo the electrical tape, which is... Oh wait, I'm the editor. I gotta do this. Alright, update on the old wiring. Working on taking the loom off. Then I also grabbed the harness that goes to the door, and then underneath the threshold plate, and then it tees off, and here's where the seat goes. And then from the seat, there's a harness that goes in the center console. And part of it connects to the shifter for the lights and unlock on the shifter. Then there's a restraint computer there, or a module that I'm hoping should be able just to delete. And then the back of the entertainment center, or the center console, with the rear radio and all that. You can access that. That's what that little harness is for. Loops around passenger seat, and then I cut it. This is where it goes back to the rest of the Expedition. Same thing right there. So that continues back, and to the rest of the Expedition. So I cut that there, and then it comes up to the door, and then from the door it goes into the junction box. I forget what that's called. Smart junction box, I think. And then there's another connector. Anyways, so the step here is I'm undoing kind of this harness here first, taking out all those extra wires that I cut off, trying to get rid of that. And then going through and looking at my wiring harness schematic and trying to figure out what wires I can delete and get rid of, and hopefully simplify this harness. I kind of quickly looked at, or I should say I looked at every circuit that's in this and available, and all the options that I have on this unit. So I went through all that and figured out what I didn't need and needed. But I think my plan is I'm keeping everything that's in the engine compartment. I'm leaving that. So all the wires and all that, I'm leaving all that. I'm doing different loom, and it might be routed a little bit different, but I'm keeping all the circuits from this main junction box to the cab itself. The reason doing that is down the road, if I want to add amp or other components, I will have an available circuit that I can hop onto and then use a fuse and relay system, and I won't have to run a new wire. So that's kind of the main reason why I'm doing that. But underneath the dash wiring right here, I'm going to try to simplify most of that. A lot of the HVAC stuff I can simplify, get rid of. Auto start, kind of tidy that up. And then, yeah, underneath the seat and all that, tidy up, because that's a lot of wires that I do not need, and not sure how I'm going to route it. Because right now, originally, this harness goes underneath the threshold, or the whatchamacallit. Anyways, but on the 58, I can't do that because there's no plastic covering and etc. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to route this wiring from underneath the dash to the back of the cab, either go outside of the cab and go underneath the floor and come back up to the floor, or go through the roof and come down, or come through the center console. I think that's what I'm gonna do, is this wiring is actually gonna take a loop underneath the center console and come out, or underneath the dash and come out through the center console, because I'm gonna be adding the center console since I'm gonna be using bucket seats. But yeah, a little update on the wiring, fun stuff, but yeah. So here's a little before shot before doing anything to the wiring harness, and then here's the after shot. Was able to move a decent amount of wires, stragglers essentially, most of this, but cleaned it up a little bit. Then it was time to unload the 58 in my garage. So I removed it from my parents' farm and moved it up to where I'm currently living, about 200 miles away from my parents' farm. So unloaded it here. Don't really have any machinery here to help in the removal process, but buddy and I and a block and a come along were able to remove this from the trailer without damaging any drywall. So that was a positive there. Then I got a new delivery of my new radiator from Auto City Classic down in Minnesota. I'd recommend them, kind of an old school mom pop shop. Picked that up, but along with some new glass for this 58. So time to install the old radiator and see if it cools. And a little mock-up here with the Expedition seat and center console, and I think this setup will work for the 58, so more to come later on. Alright, we got the wiring harness installed for testing purposes here. It is, yeah, it's something. Battery cables here, and kind of just tip the battery in there so it kind of touches and call that good. Computer hooked up here. Hook up to the trans harness. Everything's mostly clipped in. So for this, I don't really know where that goes. So that's like the only one I haven't actually have marked. So that's interesting. Anyways, hopefully you don't need that. Have the old harness running through the cab windows here, and yeah, that's something there. But hey, test purposes. And then also, this is my ground wire that I kind of just have, you know, the grounds hanging on, and then grounded through the computer and then through there. I don't know if it's gonna work, but hey, it just has to show signs of life. And maybe I might bump the starter just to see if it does stuff, but I got pretty much everything. Windshield wiper, fuel pressure gauge. This is for this. It's too short, but you know, once it actually goes in the firewall, then it'll be plenty long, but for now it is what it is. So yeah, I think I got everything somewhat hooked up. So I'm gonna go put the battery on, and then we're gonna go see if we have any dash lights in here. So and then or see what fuses we pop, or I don't know what starts on fire or stuff. So yeah, another ground right there. You know, it's custom. It is custom. So let's put the battery on. Battery is attached using the proper method. So now let's take the key and see if things light up. The key switch here. Uh-oh. I gotta tape this down, I think. To be determined here. Do we have at least lights? No lights. Alright, I forgot ground here, and so I hooked that up. We got a blinky light over here. So, holy shit, what was that? Oh, we are active, baby! It's freaking out, but hey, service, engine. Oh boy, we gotta service it. Oh. We got a touchy ground here. Imagine that. And that's to the right thing, and alright, people call me a redneck, but hey, that's resourceful. Alright, so now we got all sorts of lights. Yeah, the key fob is taped on there, so it thinks it sees the light. It sees the key. We're low on fuel. I think I gotta tape this thing down to mimic the key because it's freaking out because I think the PAPS is broken. So. All right, to some modifications on the PAPS system. I think I got her, so let's test her out here.
She chooches a little bit Cosby sauce. Let's go. Anti-theft system is not activated, and I have most of the wiring hooked up for it to start, so that's something. Don't have the fuel pump hooked up. I guess I don't have a fuel tank in this, still looking for one of those things, but so that's why I didn't continue to run. I just had to run it off of carb cleaner because there's no fuel system hooked up, but that's a problem for another day. So next step is to clean up this wiring, mount everything, mount the fan, electric fan, take the mechanical fan off, do all that fun stuff, figure out wiring, the key switch and all that. I'll show you what I got going on here. It's something. So I got all these wires. Yeah, that's something. Anyways, so I gotta make a little mount for this, for the chip, the key chip. And this is the activation thingamajig. I gotta make it so it keeps it in this position to detect the key. And then I gotta wire up these wires to a regular anyways, what I'm doing here is trying to bypass all this fancy crap, the anti-theft crap, and go with the original old school key. And I might hide a little switch somewhere so I can activate all this and keep it from being stolen. The chances of this being stolen is very slim, but so yeah, because I don't want to deal with all this crap and have one of these ugly looking keys. I want an old school metal key in here. That's what I want. So anyways. So here's one of the 3D printed devices that holds the indicator, rotation, thingamajigger. I don't remember what this does, but it holds in the slider in a certain position. And then this is to read the chip of the key. So it holds its center and inside of that ring for the chip to be picked up. And then I also made this fancy clothespin spring in there so I can quickly take it out and take it in. So I can activate my anti-theft system. And then here I am drilling some holes through the firewall so I can run the main wiring harness through the firewall here, kind of like how it is in the Expedition. So make it all nice and clean-ish looking. And then also doing some 3D scanning here of the fuse box holder and where I'm planning on putting the battery. And just some shots of the wiring harness here with that through hole. And there's a 3D printed battery jig there. Hugs the inner apron pretty decent. I will be reprinting all of these when I'm finally done making revisions to them in and out of some more nylon material. So, but these are just kind of the first prototypes here, so just mocking everything up. Next was working on the steering wheel column. So I got the column mocked up, and then working on the coupler, the connector here. So I was able to use a new U-joint coupler and then combine it with the Expedition coupler and just kind of swap some components, and was able to bolt everything up with no modification. So that was a great time saver there, and it looks pretty clean. And then moving over to the brakes here, so working on the brake booster, kind of where it comes in, it is on where the clutch is. And then I had to modify the brake pedal so it would clear the steering column.
Overall, that bent pretty dang good. Good enough. We'll see if it fits in the vehicle, but yeah, it is what it is. So what we're gonna do here, so this is the clutch on the 58, and this is the brake, and this is kind of the orientation, what we're gonna do, but how everything lines up, the brake booster lines up pretty good on the Expedition to where the clutch master cylinder was, so we're gonna put the brake booster of the Expedition on where the clutch goes. So this is how it would be when we don't need a clutch, so the brake is going where the clutch is. So what we need to do is steal this bracket and then take this bracket off, put this one on there. This way we can still use the kind of the original spring location and all that good stuff, and then the same stop is on the 58, so we should be able to pretty much swap that. You bend that, in my case, break-in or unbroke or nominal position would be from the bottom of the pivot to here is 6 inches, and then full stroke, middle of the steering wheel is around 7 inches, so right around here is like 6.5, so it should give me enough range from break-in to full stop, or from break-in to non-break-in. It should clear the steering wheel. The steering wheel is just barely kissing it, so this should be sufficient. So on the brake booster here, I cut off 4 3/8 inches, measuring from the center of the eyelet. Cut that off, and then I threaded it. There's a little divot in here, so the threads are a little narrower right here, because it held recessed this plastic piece here to hold the boot of it. So it's a little thinner here, but most of the threads should be up above there, so it should have enough material there for good threads. But the threads that I use is 3/8 by 24, so 3/8 inch fine. That goes with this little brake clevis, so that'll screw on there, put the boot on. And then going over to the brake pedal here, I did bend it, but I'll have to bend it more because it's kind of rubbing the steering shaft there a little bit, but bend that a little more and that should be fine. On the brake, there's 2 holes from the previous pedal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to ream this hole out here a little more to accept this pin for this clevis. I believe it's 3/8 again. Drill that out a little bit, and then brake booster should come in perfectly here, and it should bolt right up. So drill that out, screw the clevis on there, install the brake, and we should have brakes. And then come back and then re-bend that a little bit more, so it's not touching the.
And then I printed a TPU rubber stop since I broke my rubber stop on the pedal there. So, and then time to move on to the power steering reservoir and then that area since it's pretty messy here. And then I mocked up the Expedition intake system. Didn't like how that looks, and I got an aftermarket one. And then made some brackets to hold the power steering reservoir. Not too bad, a couple tries, but got her good down. And then hold the power steering cooler here, some aftermarket one, and then the lines running underneath the aftermarket intake. So overall, not too bad. Some more modifications to come, but for the first kind of fit up, not too bad. And then the coolant line here, put a little nipple on there to plug that, so I don't need that anymore. And then the transmission lines here, I ended up cutting the hard lines and then flaring them, make a bubble flare, and then put some transmission rubber lines on there, was clamped down, and then got some new radiator lines to fit. And then I got a fuel tank from the junkyard from a non-EL Expedition. Note, when you tell them you want one with the lines, tell them that do not cut the lines, because I had to do a lot of my modifications since they cut all my lines. I had to do some alternative measures. And then when you're making fancy brackets to hold the bed, don't forget about the fuel tank. I had to do some modifications on brackets I made months ago, since my fuel tank won't actually bolt up. And then 3D printed some kind of C-clips, since they were broken on the fuel lines, and then they get held in with zip ties. So overall, they do the function. They may not look the best, but they will work. All right, for the muffler, what I'm gonna do here is, so here's the original 2008 Expedition muffler. This is a resonator that came off my 2012 F250, and I'm gonna be taking that, and essentially it's the same flange. Should be able to bolt it right up to the collector plate, run it down, and then I'll have a side exhaust here. Then I'm gonna use the original Expedition angle pipe, or exhaust, the end tailpipe. This should come out to be right around here. I might put a tip on there to get it out further from the wheel. I don't know, it might be close, might not be, who knows. Should be able to just cut this hanger mount off, weld it on here, cut the pipe off a little shorter here, and then clean up this, because I had to take the old air hammer to it to knock it off of the rust off the back side back there. So instead of exiting from the rear, I'm just going to exit from before the tire, because there's really no room between the box and the frame anymore. So this will be the quickest, simplest, cheapest option right now. So the 5.4 will be running with cats and a resonator, so it should sound pretty good. We will see how it sounds. All right, so the fuel filler comes down here. Self-tapper, one of the tube hangers onto the apron or whatever side skirt bracket. Comes up another self-tapper. I'd bend the inner wheel well a little bit to get the tube between the body bed and then the Expedition rear cross-link member mount comes through, and then comes down inside, inside the fuel filler for the fuel tank, and I had to put a hose clamp on there because it would want to bend. This is using the original Expedition hose on there, so I was able to kind of bend it just right. Put a hose clamp in there to keep it from kinking itself, but overall it seems pretty good. There is a little gap there, but it is hose is on the nipple far enough, so it shouldn't leak. Parentheses, it shouldn't, but yeah. Otherwise, everything else is factory, so I was able to use all factory parts here from the Expedition, so not too bad. So yeah, doesn't actually look too bad from a 2008 Expedition filler tube bolted up to a 58 F250, so not too bad. It is, filler tube is level or kind of sloped back to the fuel tank, except for the spot where the hose comes down through the body or the bed. So a little bit of a lower spot there, so hopefully it doesn't slow it down too much when filling, but I think at least I should be able to fill it the slow method of one click, and then it comes up behind the spare tire mount here, and then making a little holder mount to hold it, and then I planning on using a 5-liter jerry can that puts in 5-gallon, 5-liter, whatever it is, jerry can. I kind of cut it out and it'll kind of encapsulate this area, so it'll be kind of hidden. That's the thought. We'll see if I ever get there, and hopefully I might have to move it a little bit to get a nozzle on here. So yeah, not too bad so far. All right, I got it somewhat in a good enough spot so I can try to start it here. So I will put some gasoline in there in the old fill spout over there to work on the plastics a little bit more, the holder, but overall worked out pretty good. And then I should be able to start it and make sure I didn't screw up any of the wiring in here, which I already did once, but you know, it is what it is. So note to self, when you're cutting the wires, yeah, you might not want to cut all the wires. You might need some. So what I actually did was so this is the can. This is the high-speed can.
This is the medium speed cam, HS can, MS can. Anyways, what I did was, took a little figuring out, but I cut out the restraint module, and I kind of cut out all this wiring right here. Well, once you disconnect all this, the 4x4, the biggest thing is the powertrain module, and the transmission module, anti-lock brakes, and I don't have a vehicle dynamics module. Anyways, when you cut this out, it disconnects from the instrument cluster and the data link cluster. It disconnects that from, you know, the PCM. So the PCM and the instrument cluster won't talk, and that will result in it not starting because it's not sensing anything, and it won't allow you to hook up a computer to it because it's not connected to the data link or the OBD2 sent port here. So, you know, more of the story is watch what you cut when you just delete a module, because it might be spliced and back feeds to a bunch of other components. So that's that on high speed. And then for the medium speed, I cut out a bunch of modules because I didn't need, I didn't have power running boards, and then I had a lift gate module, so I got rid of that. Driver seat module, I didn't have that. Climate control, I took rid of that. Took rid of the rear entertainment. Took out the, actually I still have the audio modular, or no, I didn't disconnect. I removed that. So really all I had to hook up was the smart junction box module. So I hooked that. I hopped off this splice and connected it back to this splice right here. So I'll talk to my instrument cluster, and then I can hook up to the computer with that to get that smart box junction box, which is right there. So I kind of have it self-tapered in. I think this is the rough location that the junction box, and I have the 4x4 module back there. Hard to see right there. So I have that kind of self-tapered in the firewall. I'm going to have to create some spacers for that. But then I got, you know, some grounds hooked up. But yeah, I got a lot more stuff to do here. But yeah, just be careful what you cut. And then yeah, everything else should be good to start it. I put a couple things back into place, but should be able to let it run for a little bit. I don't have any coolant yet in here. I'm waiting for a little adapter piece so I can put in my temp switch to run the electric fan, because I couldn't, since it's a mechanical fan with the electrical output. I think it just senses the RPM. I'm not quite sure what it does. It goes into the powertrain module, and then it comes out here, and then there's a relay that, yeah, so there's kind of just I think it's just a signal wire that comes off that mechanical fan hub. But yeah, so that is that. I'm gonna tidy a couple things up, put some gas in there, and we're gonna see if it fires. All right, let's see if this thing fires up. All right, round two. After splicing the field shutoff switch, bypassing that. So it should start now, in theory. Oh, let me turn the live data on. There we go. Now we should start seeing data. Oh, she starts! Hey, it doesn't sound too bad. The old resonator. See what the throttle does. Oh, just like that. It started. Alright, so the fuel pump, I didn't forget about it because when I was splicing everything, cutting all the wires out of the harness, I made notes on which ones I had to splice. So I originally didn't forget about it, but I forgot about it when I first went through it. So this is in the back half of the Expedition. So I cut essentially here and here off, you know, where it comes, or here and here where this connector comes in behind the firewall. I cut that because that goes all the way to the rear. So that's actually not in the system. So what I had to end up doing is now I just have a splice coming off that connector. Connector C12 or C212. I just have it spliced right now. Little Wagyu connector comes up onto that gray connector there, so it bypasses the fuel shut off switch. Now I might take that switch out of the Expedition and put it in here. So I believe that is a rollover switch. I have to do some looking. I think that's a rollover or inertia switch. I think it's both. So I might put that in there just in case if this rolls over, it'll turn it off potentially. So installed. So like that, it started. So, you know, that's a good sign. Sounds fairly decent, you know, I don't know. That sounds okay-ish. So, yeah, now I can tidy up all those wiring harnesses and all that since it does run. So, and start the next step, getting the cooling and the fan figured out. So I think I had some parts coming, so that should make that usable. So yeah, let's keep on moving on. Just like that, we'll call that good for this episode, and stay tuned for the next episode. I don't know who knows about me. I got a million projects in the works, so we'll see what comes out next after this video. So keep tuned. If you like this, subscribe, like, comment. Keeps me motivated to keep making these videos for you guys. Yeah, anyways, catch you on another episode of Big Willy's Fab Shop. I'm Big Willy, and peace.
You know, when you think you can make it, sometimes you can't actually make it. Literally a quarter of a mile and I would have made it. But no, I had to run out. Doing the old guy walk of shame.